and welcome to Talking Europe on France 24. I'm Catherine Nicholson. Today we are peering into some cracks in the European Union, ones dividing East and West, and asking how deep they really are and how the bloc can glue itself back together. I'm joined by French MEP Jean Arthuis, who's with the Alliance of Liberals and Democrats for Europe and a fervent supporter of Emmanuel Macron, the new French president. Is that right? And we can say it like that. And we're also joined by Polish MEP Jacek Saryusz-Wolski. Thank you very much for being with us. Former Europe Minister for Poland, currently unaffiliated here in the European Parliament. Well, thanks both of our guests, representing, as you can see, East and West of Europe. And the idea of East-West splits in the European Union isn't new. It has, however, been brought back to the fore in recent weeks by the French President himself as he toured several Central and Eastern European countries. And I wanted to start by asking each of my guests, how harmonious or discordant are the East-West relations within Europe? Jean Arthuis, if we start with you, perhaps.
There is no opposition. We have to recall that European Union is founded on solidarity between every member state of the Union. We have to repeat that, and we have to confirm that we are in the same view, in the same respect of the chart of fundamental values of European Union.
Okay, a big family based on solidarity. Mr. Saryusz-Wolski, all families have their disagreements, don't they?
Yes, they do, but as a negotiator of Polish accession, I would say that we were much more close at the beginning, let's say 10 years ago, than we are now. We're much more divided now. Because Western Europe is going through a series of crises, financial, migration, terrorism, and so forth, and is looking for a scapegoat. Somebody has to be guilty to accuse. And they found a scapegoat, and it is Central Eastern Europe, and specifically Visegrad and specifically Poland. And that's wrong, and it bodes badly for the European Union. And on solidarity, the problem is that it cannot be a selective solidarity. So solidarity on migration, but not solidarity on Nord Stream 2 and energy, and not solidarity in accepting migrants from war-torn Ukraine, and no solidarity on EU-Russia policy. So this solidarity is a very complex issue, and this one-sided interpretation which you give to solidarity will not lead us to more cohesive union.
Let's let Mr. Arthuis respond to that point then.
We have to be clear.
Yes.
European Union is facing a crisis due to migrations. But we have to clearly distinguish economical migrants and refugees who are leaving the war and disaster. And we have to be clear on this point.
But we are not.
We are clear. We are clear.
Well, I could point out that there has been an effort to impose a quota system, if we take up the point of accepting asylum seekers. And it was several Eastern and Central European countries that presented the most opposition to this idea. In fact, there's been a ruling very recently in the EU's highest court saying that Hungary and Slovakia were wrong to try and opt out of this quota system. On that score that you yourself brought up, it has been the Central and Eastern European countries that have been showing less solidarity from the point of view of
first of all, the verdict of the European Court of Justice is that this policy is properly, in legal terms, decided. This was the accusations from Hungary and Slovakia saying that the procedure was violated. The procedure was violated, which the court admits, but says in spite of that it is binding. So it doesn't say anything else.
So on that score,
but on solidarity and migrants, only 2% of migrants coming from the South Mediterranean are refugees. 98 are migrants. Poland has taken 1.5 million Ukrainians, out of which 1 million are not formal but de facto refugees. When we propose, and I did propose in the parliament, that all those migrants from South and East, in the spirit of solidarity,
and Syria
are taken together, we were refused and outvoted because we, Central Europe, suffering from the Eastern threat, we are in minority, so we have been just outvoted.
So you think that the migration situation isn't being looked at?
We contribute to the solidarity in migration to a much higher degree than we would have taken into account our size and population.
I feel like Mr. Arthuis wants to come back.
But we are disturbing the competition inside the European Union. Many Polish workers are posted workers, working in Germany, in France, in United Kingdom. And there are very few unemployed people in Poland.
7.8%, it's few.
I noted that many Ukrainians are now working in Poland.
Yes, because to migrants we give work.
Let's consider the situation of a firm, Whirlpool. The plant was located in France, in Amiens. It was decided to delocalize the plant to Lodz.
To my town.
To your town.
Yes.
I suppose some funding from the European Union has contributed directly or indirectly to finance the operation.
No EU incentive was given.
I had a look on advice for employment from Manpower in Cyrillic letters. That was to attract Ukrainian workers to the plant.
Well, it certainly is.
I will show you.
This plant?
I will show you.
Ukrainians don't work in the industry. It's false.
I will show you the advice.
Well, it sounds like this is a perfect moment, in fact, to pass on to a report that we have prepared on this very issue of posted workers.
So,
as you mentioned, it is very controversial. There's a certain amount of misinformation or misunderstanding about it. We'll just watch a report right now that Catherine Clifford's prepared for us. A couple of case studies for you to understand a bit better what posted workers are and why this is seen as a problematic issue in Europe currently.
Often seen as unfair competition to French employees, the issue of posted workers has been under debate for the past 20 years. 52-year-old Ion comes from Romania. He's employed by a French construction company close to Paris, contracted to work a 40-hour week. How much do you earn roughly?
1,300, 1,400, 1,500 euros when I work a lot.
1,500 euros works out around minimum wage for a French worker. It's in the employer's advantage to opt for the posted candidate. They pay social security charges to their home country. In the case of a Romanian worker, this halves the cost the company pays out. All that's needed to legally sign the contract is an ID card. Ion's housed in budget accommodation an hour away from the building site. So you live out in the Yvelines departments?
Yes, it's good accommodation.
And it's your employer that provides this?
Yeah, there are 3 of us living there, 3 Romanians.
Other workers must share prefabricated housing like this. Some employers take accommodation costs out of workers' wages, even for substandard housing. On this building site, there are no posted workers. The CEO tried hiring them for a 3-month period, but said he was disappointed.
They waltz in, looking out for their own interests. They come to make money, and things end up not being done properly.
But some sector leaders say the status of posted workers shouldn't be interfered with.
The advantage of having posted workers around is that they compensate for a lack of staff, as long as their job descriptions are clearly set out.
The most recent French census counted 286,000 legally posted workers, making France Europe's second biggest host country after Germany.
There we go, a little bit of an explainer for us all to understand a bit better this issue of posted workers that you brought up, Mr. Arthuis. Now, Emmanuel Macron wants to get stricter on the issue of posted workers. He wants to tighten up the rules, limit the duration that people can be under posted worker status for. Now, when you look at the fact that these people aren't necessarily working in the greatest conditions, we saw some of the living conditions there, and obviously there's this argument that when unemployment is as high as it is in France, around 10%, it does seem rather strange to be bringing people from another country who are obviously cheaper to the employers. So, Mr. Saryusz-Wolski, we're not talking about a ban on posted workers, a tightening of the rules, a fair proposal?
Well, first, tightening of the proposals, according to the French side, will be a ban, will mean a ban, because they'll stop being competitive. Second, this freedom of movement of services is based on one of the 4 freedoms of the single market. So it's totally legal and in agreement with the fundamental 4 freedoms of the single market. France wants to change it. When we have concluded our adhesion accession treaty, and I was negotiator of Polish accession, we knew that in technology, in financials, in banking services, Western Europe has comparative advantage in terms of competitivity. When we are invaded and our small and medium-sized trade was raised by Auchan, Carrefour, Leroy Merlin, all the great chains, when 70% of Polish banking was taken over by West European banks, including Crédit Agricole and other French banks, it was all right. But we accepted it was the rule. Free movement of banks, free movement of companies. But when it comes to them, they say, no, let's change the rules of the game.
Mr. Arthuis have his say then.
And besides that, it is just 1%, 0.9% to be exact, of the labor market. It is just populism for internal purpose to change the code of work, Code de Travail. So it is internal French problem being solved by foreign policy, destroying the always good relations between our countries.
I feel that Mr. Arthuis has a bit of a different opinion on this.
Let's suppose a Polish firm comes in France. It will employ any people from Poland or from France. They will respect the French laws concerning labor, concerning salaries, concerning social
entitlements.
Right. The problem is that we have to promote a fair competition inside European Union. We have to tackle the frauds and unfair practices. Many Polish people are working, in fact, in Germany, in France, in UK, and in Poland, you employ workers coming from Eastern countries, such as Ukraine. So we have just to organize the convergence of legislation concerning tax, social welfare, salaries, labor. That's the challenge. That's the main issue.
Well, let's look at a bit of a broader issue that comes out of this. As you say,
it
posted
is pure
workers
protectionism what we are preaching, because it's about competitiveness, which is one of the fundamental things in the European Union.
Well, just to draw it out to those broader issues, Mr.
Equalization of pay and salary in the union-wide market is nowhere in the treaty. That's left socialist invention, which is contrary to the rules of the single market.
The challenge. We can't. What is the future of European Union? We are in globalization.
No, let's stick to the EU law.
We have to face.
EU law says
we have to face the global challenge,
which you are contesting.
We need a European Union.
You are contesting EU
which
law.
Protects European citizens.
Protectionisme.
No.
Exactement ce que vous voulez.
We have to protect European citizens.
Well, let's draw it out to a bigger issue that comes out of all of this. The idea of a two-speed Europe. And this has been brought up time and again. It's been particularly heavily promoted this year by Italy. Angela Merkel also saying that she's very much on board with this idea of sort of 6 of the longest-standing, wealthiest member states of Europe forming a bit of a core with closer cooperation, while the rest have a sort of a looser federation. Yeah. Now, some might say that this is really a betrayal of the idea that we're all in it together. What would you say to that, Mr. Arthuis?
There are two speeds in Europe.
So it's a reality already?
There is the core, the Eurozone. 19 member states decided to share the currency, euro. We need a governance of the Eurozone. There is a specific solidarity between the members of the Eurozone. And we can't continue as we are, since the regulation is not respected and we have no government.
And does that mean formalising a two-speed Europe?
Yes, we have to formalize, but Poland is supposed to join Eurozone.
One day. But you want to divide the Union by creating a new executive branch, new parliament for the Eurozone?
But
so you're dividing Union into two.
Let me explain one point. The problem of Greece, the debt, we had to help Greece. And we had to create the European stability mechanism. 80 billion euro.
But before your banks have lent Greece too much
contributed not by the 28 members of European Union, but by the members of Eurozone. That means a specific responsibility, a specific solidarity. We need a specific governance.
Well, I think we are unfortunately going to have to draw a line under the conversation there. I feel like we could talk about this for much, much longer. There are so many issues that come into this idea of a two-speed Europe. But thank you both so much for being with us for Talking Europe. MEPs Jean Arthuis and Jacek Saryusz-Wolski, thanks so much for your time and for your opinions. Thank you very much for watching as well. Don't forget, you can send us your thoughts on any of the issues we've brought up in today's programme on Twitter at EuropeF24. We will be continuing after the break. Thanks very much and stay tuned to France 24.